Yeah, man, I kind of want to move on in general, if you're okay with that. Maybe we'll talk about Dota a little bit more in the next segment.
Oh my god, dude. I think I'm never going to talk about Dota on this again. Just in general. Dude, I got so fooled by having Dota's logo be on every single piece of advertisement, but then calling it the Masters, like, had me completely messed up. So, anyway.
Yeah, man. That's got to be in the same sort of bucket as like some of the backroom deal things we were talking about previously, and like our bad on that, but is what it is. Let's keep moving forward, and I think this is a good time to actually move us into our next topic. We've talked a lot about the Esports World Cup, and we're going to talk a lot more, so stay tuned. Hit that like, follow, subscribe button wherever platform you're on, and check it out and keep up to date with us. But moving into our next topic, we're going to stay on Riot, because we're going to be talking about Riot's fighting game, TXKO. Let me bring up their website real quick, and then we'll start talking about the news that happened. So, TXKO is a 2v2 fighting game with a similar cartoon aesthetic as that we've seen before. A little comic, a little hardline aesthetic, and it's been very, very anticipated. There's already been an alpha playtest, an in-person playtest, I think at EVO, etc. And there's a lot that people are excited for with this, but we're coming hard and fast with the announcement that they're bringing, why we're bringing it up here, and it's really just Alpha Lab, and that's kicking off here. So let me play the video real quick. It's kicking off very soon, Alpha Lab, and TLDR, just if you want to just tune out what these people have to say, or just listen to what we have to say, they're going to have an online alpha test of the whole game coming up soon, and you need to sign up now, basically, if you're interested in playing this game. So let's play the video and hear what they have to say in full detail.
We're here to talk about our first playtest towards the end of this year. It's going to be in August, calling it Alpha Lab. This is the next step in building this game together with players. And so this is going to be a very early version of sort of our first draft of the whole game, not just core gameplay.
So it's not just the two characters on screen hitting each other and then the assists coming in and stuff like this, but the actual around that, playing online against other human beings.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be an online play test. Offline play is there, but it won't be in this test. And you'll be able to play from at home, PC or Xbox or PlayStation 5. But the whole experience of like how you get into the game, what are the things to do other than fight? We have some great ideas and we put them together in a little package. And so it's going to be a little jank, but that's kind of the point. It's important that we hear your voice at an early enough stage where we can actually make changes.
Yeah, and I get the sense that this is really just the bones of it, right? Like the gameplay is there for everybody to mash on and have a good time, but the bones and the outline of all of the other systems in the game, like how you play against other humans, what the UX and UI and stuff like that looks like, all these other features around the game besides like I'm playing and hitting another character on the screen. So when people get a chance to play this at home, what kind of feedback are you looking for? You're not just looking for, I'm the EVO champion and the frame data on this needs to be different. You know, you're looking for everything, right? Like I went to play against my friend and it was hard to figure out how to play against them, or like, you know, these kinds of things. Like, what are you looking for and what kind of feedback is helpful for you?
Yeah, exactly. This is our first draft of like sort of the whole game loop, right? So how you get into the game, how do you like play with your friends? We're trying some things that are, you know, some things that are conventional to be familiar to you, some things that are new, and we want to get your feedback on how it's all holding together. What's your wish list? Like based on what you're seeing, like what's missing?
Tag me in.
Yeah. Sean, tell us about the kind of cool things that we're looking for.
Yeah.
To Tom's point, and kind of to your earlier point, this is really early, right? And so when it comes to the type of feedback we want, we really do want to hear everything. Even like the push the glasses up, like actually that stuff's helpful. Yeah. You know, the larger parts of the game, the around game, even though it's very early, we want to hear about it.
Yeah, I get the sense you guys have direction. Like this is what we're thinking about doing.
If that's, you know, pretty solid information for you, I can keep playing, but you have any sort of takeaway on that? Because my initial is that they want to test the net code on this, and it seems like they're not super confident of the net code for the fighting game.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a little bit of a stress test, right? Is like basically how I feel about it. You know, nothing really speaking to me about how this game is going to be a little bit different. Like, like right now, like they probably don't want to say the words of like, you know, instead of like a 1v, you know, it's the in between of Mortal Kombat versus or Street Fighter versus Marvel versus Capcom, right? So instead of having 3 with the tag team play, you're gonna have 2, which is more than Street Fighter. But then they're gonna probably have like combo breaks, like in Street Fighter, where you like perfect blocks and stuff like that. So again, like nothing about what's setting it apart from like other fighters than like, oh my God, I like Riot. Let me play a Riot fighting game.
Yeah, but we know how strong IP can be in this day and age. We're seeing a ton of Disney stuff with Marvel and Star Wars, etc. And like they do seem pretty open and flexible, because I think they've already done a play test with Ari, and like you had to manage a what is it? The orb system. You had to manage that as a resource, and like it got too heavy-handed. It got too complicated. So they ended up simplifying that a bit. But that's also where I worry they kind of make it into like a Dragon Ball Fighter kind of game. And like Dragon Ball Fighter isn't a bad game, but it's definitely a lot simpler than like a Guilty Gear or Guilty Gear Strive kind of thing. Like a lot more simple than a Tekken, which is kind of sitting on top of like the fighting game world currently as far as like its sustainability, its quality.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, how entry level is this going to be compared to like other games, like in general? And personal opinion, like the more new player friendly you make your fighting game, probably the worse that it gets for me. I'll be honest, because like a person who is playing fighting games like for the first time, there's always like, oh, I'm just spamming things, and then you like figure it out. Like I don't know like how you could make the new player experience like any better than like you already know what a fighting game is. You just don't know the characters and you don't know the moves. So like learn to play the game. I don't know how the new player experience could be like any different for a fighting game, you know?
Yeah, I'm willing to see them cook on that, but I do want to point out, I paused the video, they're all using the board, my dude.
Yeah, no, I know, man. Like the hitbox, it's like if you're not using a hitbox nowadays, like in order to like or something along the lines of a hitbox for that, you're probably not doing too well.
It's wild to me because it's such a paradigm shift than what I'm used to seeing, etc. But like here we are in a dev like roundtable Q&A kind of situation, and they're providing the hitbox and they're providing, you know, the vibe. So like they're probably designing with it in mind completely as well.
Well, you have to. Like Street Fighter codes for it versus like controller versus hitbox. I think we spoke about it on the channel once before.
Yeah.
Like so like they have to take it into account, and if they don't, it ends up being that this will be the strongest like tool, and you'll need to have this for like fighting games going forward. But like also, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I don't think it's a bad thing to start separating. Like if you want to play, you know, a music game, you have to have something different than a controller. If you want to play a fighting game, you probably should have something different than your controller. Maybe, you know, and you know, going forward, like, you know, certain shooter games might be VR based or something like that, where you can like. So who knows? Maybe everything gets a different controller per game, right?
In that way, maybe that's where the onboarding and the entry level, like, you know, I'm just going to familiarize myself with the character and the move set for each character. That maybe that's where the onboarding comes in, where it's not that it's necessarily easier on the controller, but like, you know, that might be the differential, where if you get serious about it, that you level up with the hitbox and they're able to differentiate between the two, either because like this becomes a big conversation too, even with just like aim assist and how we've talked about how bad for games aim assist is, magnetic aiming and aim assist, and that's trying to smoothing out the experience. That's trying to make it better for the player. And like, hey, Billy here. Wanted to take a quick minute to let you know a few different things. If you enjoyed the video so far, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps us out, and it tells the algorithm to share it with more people. You can find the Esports Meta live every week on Twitch and YouTube. It's where we film the podcast or hang out, play games, and chat. If social media is more your vibe, check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, or Twitter if you use Threads. Does anybody use Threads? Esports. This is a video game community that's excited to talk about esports, so jump into the conversation. Of course, you can find more videos like this here on YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button right there or there. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to the show. It does the opposite in a lot of cases. Maybe this is where a place where they can quote unquote innovate on, they can add to the conversation as the hitbox becomes more ingrained in the life cycle of video games, in the overall culture of fighting games. It's already there. It is already base standard for fighting games, but you still have a lot of people who are used to previous iterations of controllers and like sticks and boards that way.
Yeah, I think it's okay to let new players be frustrated with a genre that they're not comfortable with. Like, I don't think we should be like really holding people's hands. Like, if you're gonna play something you're unfamiliar with, like, why is it the game's responsibility to make you feel comfortable instead of you becoming comfortable with the game?
But the only thing I would add to that, because I don't totally disagree, the only thing I would add to that is that you still want to be able to hook them to keep playing, because a lot of games do the opposite. Like, yeah, it's not, we're only going to cater to the people that we know, and the people that we know are going to like this. But, you know, you do need some lifeblood. And we've seen how that's pained World of Warcraft in a while, and both ways. Trying to focus on new players and doing it badly, but then also trying to, like, avoid new players and just listening to the old hats. And you can't really do that completely either. So, like, I would just add to what you're saying, which, like, yeah, it's a new genre for somebody. They're just diving into fighting games. They're not familiar with a fighting game. There still needs to have something, even if it's as simple as being actually fun, where you can like see where it's fun and want to get better, because otherwise people just won't, especially in this day and age of mobile games.
I mean, yeah, but like, you know, fighting games have, how do I put this? Like how do you pull in new players with like a fighting game? It's like, all right, the IP, or they do like cool shit, right? But the problem with like a fighting game is that like you're going into the pool of players that play fighting games, right? So instead of like, you know, when a game comes out and you play it with your friends, like, oh, let's play like this fighting game now. That's not a thing. Like, you can't get hooked on like just playing with your friends and doing cool stuff with your friends as you both learn the game, because it's a fighting game. You're joining a pool of players that already know how to play fighting games. And so how do you get around that? That's like MMR and stuff like that, but even then, that doesn't really cut out that experience, right? Like, it's
no, that's fair, and the nature of a fighting game is highly competitive because you're looking to play against other people. You can play against the computer and speed run that stuff. By the way, Games Done Quick's going on. It's been fantastic, and I've got a clip I want to share from next week. Maybe we'll throw it in as a little bit of a reward to ourselves for pushing through on this, but you're right. Like, there's going to naturally always be about ranking and MMR, or like matching up to like equal level players. And you know, that's focusing on both players having a good experience. But I think, as true as that is, you also want it to just be a fun game. You want somebody to feel like they can get better, and like, you know, because like if walking into like MLG decades ago and playing Smash and like kind of knowing how to wave dash and, you know, not really knowing L cancel, a lot of those things are invisible. And like, you could see like, wow, they're so much faster than me and they're so much better than me, but you couldn't necessarily understand why. And like, of course, that becomes a journey for myself to ask that question, to do the research. But especially then, they were on the forums, but there's a lot of like not on the forums with it. There's a lot of learning and hands-on experience for it. And that's the point I want to make with it. It's like, you do want to kind of give them enough, just a little bit, so that entices them to, oh, hey, here's the path to go on. Here's how you get better. Here's how you become deeper in the community. And like, some of that is community based, but also some of that's developer based. Like, I agree, it's a competitive game. You're going to want to kind of keep it exclusive. You want the people you want there. But even for a viewership sort of standpoint, you want people to understand what's going on and like be able to like dive deeper in the depths of what's going on, at maybe even at a frame level. But like that,
I see it as chess though. Like, it just feels like chess. Like, nobody's gonna, like, unless, like, this is the thing about fighting games, is you have to be open to playing a fighting game, and if you're not, don't play it, right? So like it really feels very chess-like to me, where like a tournament for chess is only getting watched by people who play chess or are starting to get interested in chess and like the game, like playing board games or games like that are complex in general, right? So I don't see any value to try to like, besides like changing your IP. I don't see any value to try to get people to play like Mortal Kombat that don't like fighting games, right? If you like Animal Crossing, like why in the world would I target you as like a new player? Like why in the world would I do that? And there's more Animal Crossing people than there are people who want to play fighting games. And like you have to think about it like that. So like that shouldn't be
the only counterpoint I can make to that, not the only, but the strongest one is like, you're right. You're not going to sit there and target Animal Crossing players to try to play Mortal Kombat. But any sort of game for sustainability over time, to be a continued IP and not just be a flashback, even a community, even if it's just one singular game, if you want that game to be played for 20 years, you need to introduce it and be able to introduce it to new people, and that does involve that aspect of it. So
is that what
I think we're on the same page with that. I'm focused on a different part of it where it's like onboarding, and you know there is some onus and ownership and responsibility by the devs to be able to do that. And I think that might be the point where this game might look a little bit scary, because they could go a little too heavy-handed on it and it becomes too simplified and then just alienates the community. Or in the vice versa, it could also get too hard and too complicated, which could alienate the community, but then also just like never see the light of day on Twitch beyond 10 viewers kind of moment.
True, man. I mean, the characters that they've chosen already have kind of been... they will definitely get negative feedback if they don't do the characters justice. Like, so like Ari, that like, you know, they made it more simpler and stuff like that, but like I don't know, with like Yasuo and Darius and stuff like that, like these characters have very strong fan bases just in general.
It's true.
Alawi has
Speaking of characters, I just want to run through the roster real quick, but you know, I think that's also what they're trying to do. And like, I love some of the stuff that people play, and you know, Mario Kart Double Dash still has a community that plays it background, not even in a speedrunning way, but just in a competitive sort of way. It's definitely less mainstream. It's more of like a cult underground thing, and like that's wonderful to see. Absolutely love to see it. I don't want this game to become that, because it has such a big IP behind it. It has such a big support in the possibility of being another like staple fighting game in a legendary sort of roster of fighting games. And like that's not to say that all these other like smaller games, you know, people playing Mega Man battle cards, it's anything wrong with that. But you would also want more people, you know, if you're playing that game, you're going to want to still play that game. And to do that, you need other people to play against. And like, if they age out of it, or they're uninterested and they leave the community, you're going to want more people to come into the community for that. And that's more of my point. But I think you're right. This roster is super strong. And like the first 5 that they already announced here, we already talked about Ari, which had the Faker skin recently, and then she's already gotten a rework as far as from one of the earlier playtests here. Like they're gonna do the work, but like that's gonna be the red flags we're gonna look at. Are they too simple? Is it too complicated? Is it too entry level? Is it too old hat? And like, well, actually, kind of stuff. And that's kind of what they're talking about. And I think that's a lot of the concerns that we have on this. It is something we're gonna definitely keep closer eye for here.
Definitely. It's going to be cool, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And the reason we bring up this game too, the topic at hand, besides just going in and talking about the game we're hearing here, it's like you get to put your input now coming up. I'm going to move us back into a single Billy here, because I think we lost our friend Nick, but you get to put your input for this game coming up, because they're having an open play test. You can sign up on the website. Let me bring that up real quick. 2xko.riotgames.com. They're looking to do an Alpha Lab playtest. You can see the box right here for that. Click into that to register. You know, and so if you're super interested, if you want to just get the experience understand this is a playtest. They've already said it pretty clearly. They would like to make sure that everything that goes into the experience is good, is there. All right. So you're not looking at a full finished game. You're looking at a game as it's being developed, the netcode, the UI. So if you have any sort of input if you register and you get into this, you're playing on Xbox and you feel like, hey, it's a little weird. You're going on PC and it's like, this is perfect. Whatever it is you think, you get to say it to them and they'll read the feedback and you get to contribute to the development of this game, which I think is a wonderful thing for a game like this, because fighting games traditionally, like Nick, you're back, you're here with us. Fighting games are absolutely about the community, 100%. And you were already talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, I had a person knock at my door. So I needed to answer the front door for a second.
No worries, bro.
Yeah.
No worries, bro. I was just talking about how you can sign up for the Alpha Lab, which is the point of this. It's the big news happening for this game, and how you can contribute to the development of this with your feedback. And they'll take anything big from the way a character feels and plays, and the frame data, and the combo list, and the sequence, all the way to something small as like, hey, this button looks weird when I try to play the game, or this graphic on the UI sucks.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd be really interested. I'd be really interested to hear the feedback from like people who are already playing a lot of the fighting games. Even though, like, we're gonna see a lot of streamers and stuff like that, right? Like the people who normally play these fighting games, like they're all gonna get free keys, probably with an email like, hey, check out this game for us, please, while this game is going on, to try to generate some stuff to it. But I'd be really interested to see like what their feedback would be, how complicated and how fulfilling the combos would be, right? And any like people who already know League of Legends and already know the characters that are going into this, the feedback that I can see like super valuable from them would be like, how much does it feel like you're playing the character from League of Legends? Like how close is this to how it feels to play that character? It's your favorite character and stuff like that. Like, because they have unique combos that are in League of Legends, and I'm surprised that we don't see Lee Sin. Like, I think like probably like I think the craziest thing is the fact that we don't see Lee Sin, who already in game has a very has a special move that is called something. It's called the insect because of the person who did it, right? And it's like it looks like a fighting move where he throws out a kit, his little resonating wave, and then he jumps behind you with a ward hop, and then he kicks you back into his team and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see like stuff like that, like unique things that only are specific to the champion in League of Legends if they carry over.
Yeah,
which would be
that's a great point.
Cool for the IP.
The IP is definitely a strong basis for this in fighting game, because it's going to spotlight a lot of the individuality of the heroes and their capabilities. So that's another point of criticism or advice you can provide, feedback. You sign up and register. The playtest isn't happening until August. I'm sure we're going to see all the fighting game community jump into this as soon as it goes live, critiquing the littlest things all the way to the biggest stuff. And I'm here for it. You can yourself sign up at alpha.txko.riotgames.com, or you can just Google TXKO Alpha, and you should be able to come up to this page. Make sure you register. You can register for PlayStation, Xbox, as well as PC, and the playtest is going to be happening August 8th through the 19th. All right. It's pretty straightforward on the topic here. Any final thoughts for this, Nick? And then, we'll actually wrap up for the episode.
No, I was just thinking like the three aspects of like League of Legends that don't make it like unique but like stand out compared to like certain other MOBAs, right? Is like they do have the talent tree, they do have purchasing like items, and then they have summoner spells. So personally, I'm thinking like, did they bring over the talent trees and the picking two summoner spells kind of thing? Like, do you get two summoner spells, two characters, and that's something that like you can use at certain times and stuff like that? Like,
maybe that'd be kind of interesting, because it'd be a little bit like Poke Tekken, right? Like where not Poke Tekken, but Tech.
Pokken?
Where they Pokken. Oh, my bad. poking. It'd be a little bit like that, where they select that like assist character, but then have them choose. I think Marvel vs. Capcom did that as well, where it's like heroes had different like attributes. You can choose the speed one versus the strength one.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting point to see with this and the summoner spell aspect of it. But yeah, cool to see. We'll jump in ourselves later in August and take a look for it. I'm definitely more jazzed about it as well because, like you said, I think you made a really good point where it's like you get to bring over the lore and the character mechanic to it. And I think that was something that made like Marvel Rivals playtest really exciting because it felt like you were Spider-Man. And that's kind of a good or a bad thing because, you know, that Spider-Man could be super broken or just really bad. But, you know, fans would be mad if he didn't do his web slinging thing, right?
Yeah, nobody would play Spider-Man if you couldn't swing on a web.
And I think that could be the same here, right? But, you know, we get to add our input coming up. Make sure you register. Make sure you play. Also, make sure you follow us. You know, we're...